Right, so the first thing that we want to talk about, just before we're going to go into how do we actually use it, is why do we want to use the WCG Schools account? Why it's actually an important, an incredibly important tool, and why we view it as such an important tool. And the simple fact is, it's an incredibly powerful tool for just communication. Too many educators are still using a Gmail or a Hotmail or a Ymail or a Live or whatever account it is that you might be using, but we're using a private email address for our school purposes as well. Now what happens is this inbox simply gets flooded quite quickly, and it's not easy to keep our information organized and separate, our personal emails that we're receiving from our work emails that we are receiving. And in essence, this is just the start of why we want you to start using this account. What we're going to look at today is not the extra features that this account could bring, but we're going to focus on the on just making sure that you're able to connect to it, and then we're going to look at the following 3 Microsoft apps that we want to that we really want to start using more and more in the district, and those apps are Microsoft Outlook, Microsoft Calendar, and Microsoft Teams. These 3 are the cornerstone of the communication that we need to use this platform for. Using it effectively is also going to allow us to collaborate a lot more effectively moving forward. Now, the important part that, or the important thing that you need to understand about this is all educators in the Western Cape have received this WCG Schools account. If you don't have access to yours yet, you have to talk to the CMIS officer at your school and ask them to go onto CMIS and see what your login credentials are. At the end of the session, if there are any questions, please use the Q&A, or not at the end, during the session. If there are questions, use the Q&A, and my colleagues Harriet and Gilbert will try as far as possible to answer those questions. If there are key questions, they'll bring it to my attention and we can address it in the session as well. I know a lot of people have asked the questions around how do we actually, how do we get access to our accounts if we don't have an account? How do we make sure that we can create an account? And we're going to take you through that process as well today. So I'm just going to ask Gilbert to switch to my Google Chrome now. Now we've decided to use Google Chrome to showcase the connectivity, because I think Chrome is a browser that a lot of us use. Some of you might be using the new Edge Chromium, which is very similar to Chrome, just with some other functionality. Some of you might be using different alternatives. The one thing that I can tell you is, as far as possible, because we are moving to a lot of web-based apps, if you're still using the old Internet Explorer, you are going to run into issues if you haven't done so already. So please make sure that you're using a newer browser. If you want to use Microsoft, get the new Edge Chromium, or alternatively Google Chrome or any of the other modern browsers works well. So the very first thing we want to do is, how do we actually sign in to our account? Now, in order to get to our account, we need to go to the following address: office.com. So you can either, the best way to get to it is to right at the top, not in the search Google or type URL, but right at the top, into the address office.com. Right? Once you enter that address, it's going to take you to this page that you see in front of you, the landing page for office.com. So I'm just going to maximize my screen a little bit so you can see everything in even more detail. Right. So once we get here, it's a simple case of signing in. You're going to click on sign in, and it'll take you to this signing in screen. Now, please note, you do have an account. When it says no account, create one, you already have your account. Can't access your account? If that is the case, please contact us rather than trying to follow the Microsoft the Microsoft built-in support. So you're going to enter your email address. So I'm going to type in my email address here. Right, so it's the full email address, which is normally going to be your name, dot, and your your name dot surname at vcgschools.gov.za. Now, what I've seen in the past, a lot of us, sometimes just because we're typing quickly, we forget the C for schools, or we sometimes forget the H of schools. So if it says that the account doesn't exist, just make 100% sure that you've got the back end 100% correct at vcgschools.gov.za. So not .co.za, .gov.za. So this is your address, and then you're going to say next, and it will ask you for a password. So at this point, if you haven't spoken to the CMIS officer at the school yet, or someone who has access to CMIS, we can't give you the password, unfortunately. You will have to go and ask the CMIS officer. They will give you a password. Once you log in for the first time, unfortunately, I can't show you that process now because I have already gone through that. But once you log in for the first time, they're going to ask you to reset your password. Please remember that password that you reset it to. You can manually go and change it again if you forget it, but it's a lot easier if you just remember that password. So please make sure that you, in some way, keep a note. We don't recommend writing it down anywhere because obviously then someone can get access to it. And if we're going to start using these accounts more and more, it will contain more and more sensitive information. So a password that you know you won't forget, that you is something that is easy to remember, but at the same time a reasonably strong password. Right, so I'm going to enter my password. Let's hope I entered it correctly. Okay, so when we get to this point, let me just explain what is going on here. In the top right, because I'm using Google Chrome, it has the function of saving and remembering passwords. Now, this isn't the worst idea to use this, especially if you are using your own laptop or your own desktop. In other words, you're not sharing it with multiple people. Then this is a good idea to save the password. If it is something that you're using with multiple people, but you're using your own account on Google Chrome or on Chrome, on Chromium, then you can save it as well. If it's a shared computer, then rather don't save it, because it's otherwise what's going to happen is whenever someone goes to office.com, it will remember your username and your password, and it will try to log in automatically for you, which is not something we necessarily want. Right, so in this instance, I'm going to say never because I don't want it to be remembered here. Then what happens, and this is why your phone number has to be correct when you're going to log into when we register your account, is you've got two options for the two-step verification. Microsoft will either phone you on the number that you've provided. Obviously, they're going to keep it, they won't provide the phone number here, they're just going to show you the last two digits. When you register for the first time, you actually have the opportunity to change that phone number. So when you're going to log in, make 100% sure that the phone number is correct, because that is how we use the two-step verification. That's going to happen. So you're going to log in with your password, and then they will send you a PIN code. So they're either going to send you an SMS with the verification code. So I'm just going to quickly enter my verification code. Please note, don't try and enter my verification code because it's not going to work for you. And then I'm going to say don't ask again for 30 days because I don't want to be bugged with this the whole time. So if you're using your own computer and you've logged in once, it's not going to ask you to do this every single time. Otherwise, it can get a little bit frustrating. But this is specifically to protect your account from being used on different machines. If it's your own laptop that you're using or your own desktop, then it's fine. Then we can use this option, right? If I'm going to go, even if I select don't ask me again for 30 days, if I, for example, want to use my colleague Gilbert's laptop, it will ask me to sign in again because Microsoft will detect it's a different device. The alternative to this is they can phone you. And when they phone you, all you need to do, answer your phone, and then just press the hashtag key, and then you'll be logged in as well. So that's your other option. Right, so we're going to click on verify, and it will take me to office.com. Now, my office.com looks a little bit different because I've actually got some files that have been added here. So Microsoft will automatically generate recommendations for things that you might want to go quickly, access quickly. So here's a PowerPoint, for example, that I've got. Here's a MS Teams tutor training. We're not going to show you this part of Microsoft, of the 365 account, but just be mindful of the fact that if you haven't had any kind of experience with cloud storage, cloud computing, any of those things, what we're looking at now is actually a cloud-based platform. What that means is these files that you see over here are accessible on any computer. They're not local on my laptop. They're actually accessible on the internet. So if I were to go to any of your laptops right now, log in with my account that I just used, I could access all of these files that you might see over here. I'm not going to scroll down to show you all of it. But that is the power of this account. And the great thing is, while you don't have unlimited space on your Office 365 account, I'm not going to tell you how much you have, but you're not going to reach the end of your space. That I can guarantee. Not guarantee, but I'm pretty sure you won't get to a point where you've maxed out the amount of space that you're given online, which is, again, it's a huge advantage. If you're using something like Google Drive, you've got a 5 gig limit. If you're using Dropbox, I think Dropbox's limit is even smaller than that. So with this account, you've got a lot more space that you can use in your OneDrive. So, but let's get to the apps that we want to focus on today, which is going to be our communication apps. The first app that you want to be able to access is Outlook. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have at some point engaged with Outlook before, but most of the time it'll be the Outlook, the desktop version of Outlook. So in other words, the Outlook that you will get on your computer. Now, this Outlook looks a little bit different, and it's actually got a lot more functionality to it, especially when we start looking at this online, the online Drive, OneDrive compatibility. So if we're going to click on Outlook, let me show you there are 2 ways to get to Outlook. Well, there's a number of ways, but we're going to look at 2 ways that we can get to it. So if you have any experience with the Google platform, you know we often talk about the waffle. Now, the waffle in Google sits on the right-hand side. It's an icon that looks like 9 dots. If you click on it, it opens up the apps. In Microsoft, the waffle sits on the left. Don't ask me why they decided to move it. It's just often like that. Microsoft is on the left and Google is on the right. So if we click on this waffle here at the top, it'll show you the different apps that you've got. And there's a lot more if we click on all apps. It's going to open up some of the other ones that you have. But if I click on that, you will quickly notice here are some of the apps that I'm sure you will have used in the past. Outlook is our email client. OneDrive is our online storage. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, I don't think these need any introduction. OneNote is a little bit different. It's a very powerful app that you can work around with, and SharePoint and Teams. These are some of the ones. These 3, I suppose, would be a little bit new to some of us. But what we want to do is we want to jump into Outlook. Just to show you quickly how you can get to that even faster. If I don't want to click on the waffle, you'll see you've got quick links over here, in fact. So over there, you'll see there's Outlook, so I can jump to that as well. It'll take me to the same place. So we're going to click there, and we're going to click on Outlook, and my Outlook is going to load. Now, this is the online version of Outlook. And there's a lot of emails in here, as you can see, that looks like I'm never reading my emails, actually. But most of it is testing emails that we're using. And then it's also, in addition to being test kind of emails that we're using, it's also, this is not our primary email address. Sorry, I just noticed some things in here. What I would like to point out, and I'm going to show you how that works now. And one of the really great advantages of using this, especially if you're going to get to a point where school-wide you adopt using this WCG Schools account. So if I open up Outlook in front of me, you'll see it looks similar to any other mail client that you might have used. We've got our tabs over here on the side where I can go to my inbox, my sent items, and here I've got my the emails that I've received. So if I click on a link, it's going to show me the email, and from here, it's just a simple matter of replying, forwarding, all these things. We're not going to go into detailed training of how to use Outlook. We just wanted to show you how you actually get to Outlook. But one of the nice things about this is if I'm in here and I'm going to open up a new message, you now have something called Active Directory. In other words, it'll pick up different users on VSG Schools domain. So if I start entering my own name, immediately it's going to actually start loading. It's going to try and find suggestions of who I could be talking about. So if we click on Search Directory, it's actually going to open up the Active Directory, which means you can search within the organization to find people. So I can easily go and type in Gilbert, and there it shows his email address. I'll click on it, and I can go here and I say Harriet, and I click on it. Now, what I would like to point out, and this is just to avoid confusion here, we have, as e-learning advisors, we actually have access to these accounts as well. So if you're going to find an email address like this one, that Jaco van Niekerk at vsgschools.gov.za, your email is going to end up in this inbox, which, as you can see, is something I don't read because we use our westerncape.gov.za addresses. So it's just something that I thought I should point out. Please make sure that you send information to our Western Cape addresses, because we don't use these email addresses specifically. Right, but I can add a person that I want to send it to. At CC, I can add another person. I know someone pointed out we need to be mindful of what BCC also means. So you can use BCC. BCC simply means that if I'm going to send this email to Harriet McKay over here as well, then these two will be able to see that the email was sent to Gilbert and to Jacobus, but Harriet will be able to see that it was sent to these two, but they will not see that it was sent to Harriet. So BCC is like is the best way if you're sending out an email to 30, 40, 50 people, but you don't want those 50 people to see each other sending it to each other. Then make sure that you use BCC. It's a very useful little trick. Right, so from here you can just simply send your messages like you would normally send an email. So I'm going to go there, I'll enter a subject, and then I'll enter a message, and I can click send. And you also have the option to send later, etc. Again, we're not going to go into training in the use of the mail client. This is just to show you how you actually get to the mail client. Right, so quick and easy way to get or to access your emails and to send emails, and it works very well. There's lots of extra little functions built into this, especially for collaboration, etc. That you can, as you start using it, you'll discover the functionality. As an e-learning team, for us, the key thing is we want to make sure that you start using these addresses rather than your personal email addresses. So when you're registering for events, that you start registering with your VSG Schools accounts, that we can start that you switch over your personal email addresses, that you leave it where it is, and your work things you start moving into this platform. Right, so this is just the email component that we wanted to look at. So the next component we want to look at is how we get to Google Calendar. Not Google Calendar, Microsoft Calendar. Right, so if we click on the app launcher, you'll notice that Calendar isn't actually one of the ones that you see here, because Calendar is built into Outlook. So getting to your calendar means going to Outlook and opening up your calendar. Now, because that can sometimes, I'm one of those people who'd like to get to everything in one click. So I'm going to show you a little trick that you can actually use to get to things a little bit quicker. And that is using your bookmarks effectively. So different software have different ways of bookmarking. I just want to zoom in here a little bit. So if we need to bookmark something, Using Google Chrome, you'll see there's a little star icon here right at the top. So next to where this long address is, or URL address is over there, right at the end there's a star, which I think is a universal sign of showing this is a favorite, or however you want to view it, but that bookmarks it for you. So if I click on the star, it's going to actually bookmark this address for me. Now, I don't want to bookmark this long address necessarily. I want to rather make sure that I go in Outlook. It needs to be plain Outlook, not actually in an email already. There we've got the address, and now I click on the star and I bookmark it for myself. Now you'll see, there we go. There it has been bookmarked. Sorry, I made 2 copies. Mail Jacobus van blah blah blah. So there is the bookmark. Now, if I open up my browser for the first time and I want to get into my email, I just click on that and I'm straight into my email. No extra clicks, no going to office.com, anything like that. Click on that and I'm into my email. Right. I'm going to show you the bookmark thing again, because now we're going to do it with calendar, because that's where it becomes frustrating. So we'll go through that again when we get to the calendar. So getting to our calendar, if we don't bookmark it, means going into Outlook first, and then you'll see here on the right, on the left, there's a whole bunch of little tabs that you can switch to. So we can quickly jump into Word and Excel and PowerPoint and OneNote, because what Microsoft is trying to do is they're trying to see how people's navigation usually works and make it quick and easy for us. I'm not going to go into what all of these different things are. We're going to go straight into the calendar. So if you click on calendar, it opens up my calendar. Now, again, I do not want to have to click too many times. So we're going to go and we're going to show you again the bookmarking of our calendar, how to get into this quickly. So here we go. This is the browser. And again, different browsers will do this slightly differently. You just need to make sure that you're able to bookmark it. In Google Chrome's case, right on the right over here, you'll see there's a little star icon. The star icon is what we click to bookmark a page. So we can click here and it opens up and it tells me that the bookmark has been added over there. Now I can choose, where do I want to save this bookmark? I'm a big fan of using bookmark, of using folders. We have a video, if I'll give you a quick advertisement break, we have webinars and videos that will train you in a lot more detail how to use bookmarks effectively, how you can create these bookmark folders, etc. So you're welcome to go to our Cape Winelands e-learning web page. We are going to share you the link to that later, and go scratch around and see what webinars we have on there that have already been recorded. But now that I've clicked on this, the bookmark has already been created. So you can see over there, there's my bookmark. It says calendar hyphen Jacobus, etc., etc. Now I don't always like these long names for my bookmarks. So by default, it's going to save the name of the site that you're on. It'll save that as the name of the bookmark. But you can change that easily. Once you've created the bookmark, it opens up this little tab, and you can just go and select that part and take it away and say done, and you'll see it looks a little bit better when it says just calendar. I know my own name after all, so I don't need to add that to my bookmark. Right, so there I've got my calendar, and there I've got Outlook. On your calendar, again, this is something, and we're not going to go into detail how it actually functions, but in your calendar, you can now set up your own reminders for things. You can now set up your own events, etc., etc. So just to show you very quickly, I'll find anywhere on my calendar. Let's say tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, I need to remember something. I'll click on the day, 15, right? So once I've clicked on it, we're going to double click. Sorry. Let me just do that again. Sorry. Okay, so I'll double click and it opens up this little panel, or this not so little panel, opens up a panel where I now can add the name of the calendar, what I want to call it. So we're going to call it upload video for training, right? Because we are going to make the video, this whole session is going to be available as a video again. So I'm just going to add this event. I need to invite my colleagues because the three of us are going to do this together. Right, so there we go, and now we've added our added them to as attendees to this thing. Once I'm happy with all the information being there, so we can add a description to it, you can add documents, you can do all sorts of things that you want to add to this. Once I'm happy that this is actually finished, then you just simply click here at the top on send, and once you click on send, they will then get an invitation, an email that they get, where they can accept or reject the invitation. And if they, either way, if they accept or reject it, it will appear on their calendar as well. Now, one thing that we've found so far is, seeing as a lot of what we're doing has moved onto this online platform, there's a lot of training events that are happening, for example, and there's a lot of engagement that's happening online. So it becomes very important to have some kind of calendar setup. And if we get to the point where our teachers at the moment, because there are so many of our teachers who are logging into these events using different addresses, it becomes difficult for us to send out calendar invites. So for example, a Google account, a Gmail account, treats a calendar very differently than a Microsoft account. So if I've got 50 people that are registering and the majority of them are not using Microsoft accounts, we can't invite people this way always. Sometimes it doesn't work quite as effectively because Microsoft is going to pick up who you are a lot more effectively when using a Microsoft account. So that's one of the reasons why we are trying to encourage people to move to using a Microsoft platform. And there's no reason why you can't use both concurrently. This is something that we do a lot in the district office, is use both these accounts. So we're not trying to advocate to drop your one account and use only the new account. We are trying to advocate the idea of use your WCG schools account for formal communication, specifically because this is going to make your life and our life a lot easier. Right, so I've got my event set up, I'm going to send it out, and now what's going to happen, I've got this event there at 8 o'clock. Not sure what made it a sprint, but what's going to happen is my colleagues are now going to get an email in their Outlook, their Outlook account that asks them to join this session. So if they accepted it, I'll receive a notification that they've accepted the invitation. This just makes it a lot easier, especially for remote support, the distance support that a lot of you are receiving at the moment, if we are following these procedures. Right, so there's a lot more to go to this calendar that you can that you'll be able to delve into in terms of sharing it, in terms of adding additional people to the calendar, etc., etc. So there's a lot that you can do with calendar, but for now, just using it, just going onto it and making sure that you are starting to keep an online record of the things that you need to do. It's going to make your life a lot easier. On that note, what I can also tell you, you are going to, or what you can also do, you can link this account, this WCG Schools account, you can link it to your phone. If you add this account, we're not going to, I think at some point we'll make a video that explains how you do that, but it becomes a very useful way to communicate effectively and quickly if you've got that account on your mobile device as well. So again, then many of us might be using a different account. When you get a mobile device these days, you almost by default get a Gmail account so that you can access Google Play. The Play Store allows you to add your apps, etc. So not many people add Microsoft accounts to mobile devices, but exactly in the same way as your Google account has been added to your mobile device, a Microsoft account can also be added. Obviously, there's no Play Store like you've got with the Google side of things, but the communication and the collaboration and all of those things works exactly the same. It's also available on a mobile device. Right, so the third of the apps that we want to look at is Microsoft Teams, which is, in terms of communication, for us, I think almost the most important one of these that we need to look at. So I'm going to look at the web version of it specifically, because at the moment we're looking at how we can do the web applications before we just dive into our local or the desktop applications. Outlook, I think everyone knows, has a desktop application, and the desktop application has calendar built into it. So you can, if you've got Outlook on your laptop, the desktop version, you can obviously link these two. And the nice thing is everything that you do in Outlook online, the web app will reflect automatically on your Outlook on your computer. And the same applies to the calendar. Right, so now we're going to go into Teams. Getting into Teams is the same as we get into the other things. We're going to click on the waffle, and it'll take us to Teams. So if we click on Teams, now we are navigating to Teams. Now, Teams sometimes take a little bit longer to load because of the three, it is by far the most complex. Easy to understand the basics of it, but quite complex when we look at the functionality that it can offer. So we're just giving it a few minutes to just get everything set up. You might have noticed that there was a quick little window that popped up that said get the desktop app. So the first time when you log into Teams and you don't have the desktop app, it actually gives you the option. It gives you the option of downloading and adding the desktop app. We do recommend that you use the desktop app because you're going to have a better experience when using the desktop app. In general, the web app works quite well as well. I know I use the web app a lot, but the desktop app, especially for live meetings, so these ones that we are doing now, that's especially it becomes especially powerful then. So whenever you want to join meetings and these things, and from I think the majority, if not all, of meetings in future from the district side will be done in MS Teams. So it's a good idea to get that desktop app because you will experience a better meeting on your end. So I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit. We just want to go to the default one. It doesn't want to take me to that home screen now. Right, let me just zoom in here. So once you've opened up Microsoft Teams, what I wanted to show you before we do that, the same way that I made a shortcut for Outlook and I made a shortcut for Calendar, I recommend making a shortcut for Teams as well. This is just all a way of getting into these things a little bit quicker. So we're going to click here on the bookmark. It's going to open up this option. Now I don't want the loading part to be part of my name for the bookmark. I'm just going to take that away and done. And now I've got my 3 bookmarks. I've got Outlook, I've got Calendar, and I've got Teams. Now, right, so that's a quick and easy way to get into these 3 web-based applications. And just to show you, if you forgot to change the name, it's quite easy to change it. I can just right-click on this and then say Edit, and it opens up that thing. And I'm just going to say, just take that away, and we're just going to call it Mail. And there we go. There I've got my 3 applications that we want to look at. You can even call that Teams instead of Microsoft Teams. So in Microsoft Teams, there's a few things that are important to take note of. The chat is one of them. That's actually a very useful little function that you can use. So here in the chat, any of the sessions that you've joined, so you'll notice there's a couple of sessions over here, automatically creates a chat in Microsoft Teams. All of this, unfortunately, when you're going to be joining as a guest, so you'll see over here, I've got a few people that joined as guests, and I've got a few people that joined with their actual accounts. I'm not sure if there's anyone that joined with an actual account. But if you join with your Microsoft account, this remains accessible again after the meeting, which makes it very easy to open it up, find the relevant meeting that you attended, click on that, and then there's a recording right over there. Because I know that's often a frustration. We don't know where to go find our recordings. And that's one of the quickest ways to find a recording if it's a session that you've attended. So you can just go wherever it is, click on that, and you'll see it opens up. And depending on how the meeting's been set up, you can still use this chat afterwards. You can communicate on this chat, discuss things that happens at a later stage. Or if you want to, you can click on here at the top. You'll see there's and this one is a well hidden part of Teams sometimes, how you actually start a new chat. So this is an alternative to using an email, because sometimes we just have a quick question that we want to ask, and now we send an email and we wait and we get an email back and we send another email, another email, another email, and it just becomes, the message sometimes becomes lost. Now the chat function is quite nice for that, because if you click on the chat function, it asks who do you want to send your chat to. So going to say that quickly. So here I'm going to actually send the message to this account. Now this is my this is the account that I actually use, my westerncape.gov.za account, and I'm going to say, hi, I need some help, as an example. And this message is going to go through to my side as a chat message that I can actually access and respond to. Right, so specifically this becomes useful when we do it internally, right? So we don't recommend that you send these messages to us, to your subject advisors. However, if you've had a meeting already with someone and you've set up that kind of meeting, then you can, over here, for example, if I just need to find one that I've got an address that is using a WCG schools. So as you see, for us, it becomes a little bit difficult if we're not using these, because a lot of these I will not be able to contact again. But if I click on a person that is actually, again, this is a guest and these are guests, and you see why we are trying to advocate this. Right, I'm not going to go looking for one now. But the good thing is, if you start up a chat like this, there's a lot of extra things that you can add to it. You can jump into a meeting very quickly, a video call or an audio call. You can add people to this chat, if you see in the corner. With files, you can add files to a chat. So there's a lot of functionality that you can explore within Office 365 when you start using Teams. And the same thing is available in the desktop app. Again, as I said, the desktop app works a little bit, sometimes it just seems to be a little bit more stable. So if you are struggling to get the desktop, if the prompt came up, install the desktop app, and you said ignore, you don't want to install it, then you can still add it by clicking on this icon here at the top and say download the desktop app. Right, so there we can easily download our desktop app. On that note, what's also quite nice, and it becomes easier for us to respond if we have a good sense of who we are talking to, because there's a lot of teachers and multiple teachers might have accounts that look quite similar. The same thing applies to your colleagues. So if you want to, you don't have to. It's a nice thing if you just add a little picture to your name as well. If you're going to go to change picture, and if you do that in Teams, if you've opened up Teams and you go to change picture, that picture will be reflected across all of Office 365. So your little avatars, they call it, will then be accessible throughout the whole thing. So just one other part that I think is important to understand is the Teams itself. Now again, we have videos on the use of Microsoft Teams that's available on our e-learning TPD platform. So we'll share that link with you. So you're more than welcome to go and see the links that we've got on there. We also really have the intention is to focus a little bit more on Microsoft training in term 2. I know in this term, some of you might have attended our Google training. We did a lot of Google training in the past 2 terms. So in term 2 of this year, we want to do a little bit more Microsoft training, which is going to only really make sense once you start using your Microsoft account, because you won't be able to do any of it unless you use your Microsoft account. And we will focus specifically on what you can do with your WCG Schools account, and not just a general one. But if you're in a team, just to give you a very quick preview and a sneak peek of what one can do, we can create a team over here. So join or create a team. So let's say, for argument's sake, we're going to create a team. And you'll see there's a couple of other teams in here as well. We'll just call this a staff team, because I know a lot of people are looking for ways to communicate internally in the staff. We'll call this example school. We're not going to add a description here. And then this part, privacy, rather make sure that you keep this a private team. The reason why we say that is the organization. It says anyone in your organization can join. Remember, your organization now, when we look at the WCG Schools account, is not your school, but the entire province. So if you make it public, anyone in the province can find your team and join your team, which we don't really want. So leave it private, stick to that, and we're going to keep it there. And we're going to say next. And this will create the team for you. Now you can start adding people to the team. So let's see if there's a pit. So you can see there's a whole bunch of pits here. So you're just going to find the person. So let's say we want to add Pitt Miller as an example. I just saw there's a name. Sorry, you said Pitt. Right. So just make sure that you just showed Pitt Miller. But anyway, so here we can actually find all the different people. Oh, it's Peter Miller. We can find the different people in our schools. Everyone in the entire province who has a WCG Schools account, which makes it quite quick and easy to create this group. Now the problem is, it's not going to help us if we don't have the others on this group. So let's select Harriet and Gilbert. We want to create our team, and it's going to, again, please do not use these accounts to contact us because you won't get hold of us. Now we're going to say add. We want to add these two, and then you can decide, are you going to make them owners or members, whatever it is that you want to use it for. And now the great thing is we've got a team over here, and in this team, you can actually use this team as a place to communicate. What makes this nice is it's like a message board that you're going to create. The difference between this and, for example, WhatsApp, which is what most schools are using to do this kind of communication, is you can scroll easily backwards and forwards, and you open up new conversations. So we're going to say first conversation. It'll open up this little first conversation, and I can say second conversation. And you'll see it creates different threads, essentially. So when you are having a discussion about one thing, let's say, for example, you're discussing the school timetable, then you're going to post a conversation and people reply to that conversation. And it's easier to keep track of who is talking about what, and finding things and organizing content and organizing conversations and things that you're talking about. So that in its own is already an incredibly powerful way of making your communication more effective. But this only works when everyone is on board and everyone is using the same platform to do this. So again, there are alternatives to Microsoft Teams, of course. The advantage that you have here is your staff already have WCG Schools accounts. They just need to start using it. So that's our advantage of using this platform versus using other platforms. And of course, you do not need to pay for these licenses. You already get these licenses. With some of the alternatives, you actually have to pay for licenses. What's also very good here is you've got this part at the top where you've got files, and here we can upload files. So I could typically add I'm going to show you how we're going to put files in here, but I could add a Excel Excel spreadsheet in here with the staff list. Now, the nice thing about that is if the file is in here, it becomes accessible and editable by people. So if something changes in the staff list, you simply open up the Excel sheet, you change the Excel sheet to whatever it needs to say, and you don't need to go print a new copy and distribute it to all this to the staff. It has been updated automatically. It's a dynamic. It becomes a dynamic file as opposed to a static file. Again, if that sounds a little bit complicated, this is part of the kind of things that we want to address in next term's sessions on using Microsoft Teams effectively and the Office 365 account, etc., etc. So this is merely an introduction, and hopefully something could start getting you to think about what you could do with this. Part of Teams that works quite nicely is you can create different channels. So if I've got this team, I can click over here. Just close and delete. I click over here and I add a channel. When I add the channel, let's say this is sport. So we're going to add the sport channel. And here I've got an extra channel. So conversations to do with sport go into the sport channel and not the general channel. Again, this organizes the conversation, that organizes the communication. Here, where with general, I would upload in files, I can upload the school's timetable. With sport, I could upload the sport timetable. And again, files that are going to be posted under files become accessible and editable by the members of the team. So here we'll see with files, as an example, if it's over here, I just go to new and I create a new Excel workbook. And then we're going to get to the last little bit that I can show you about this, and we're not going to really show you. We just want you to understand that this exists, and that's the online Office suite. So I can go to new and I create a Word document. Remember, if I create it over here, the nice thing about this is it is automatically loaded into cloud storage, so it becomes accessible in the cloud. And that means you can access it from anywhere in the world on any device as long as you log in with your account. Now, you'll see here I've opened up something that looks exactly like Word, but if you look at the frame around it, the blue frame, that's different. And that is actually MS Teams that is happening around the Word, that's happening around the Word document. So make sure that you, if you look at it, it works exactly the same. The great thing is it's a collaborative document. So I'm just going to close that. And you'll see same story. If I'm going to go to new, I go to Excel, and I'm going to say first Excel document, and I say create. Here we go, and this will look exactly like Excel, which you've used. Again, the difference is it's online, it's collaborative, and there's a lot more that you can do with that. The great thing, again, what's going to happen is I've got these documents in there. The minute I add anyone to my team, they automatically have these things. So what you can start thinking about, especially if you're on the SMT, for example, is how could you use something like this to simplify communication, to reduce hard copies, as an example. Just start considering how you could do that. But before any of that becomes possible, before any of this can happen, you need to start using your WCG Schools account. So that brings us full circle, and I'm going to conclude with this now. The WCG Schools account, the primary benefit of using it and using it effectively is it's going to make communication internally and externally. It's going to make it a lot easier and a lot more effective. You can start moving into a cloud-based environment, which is really going to change the way that you work. And there's a lot more to this that we haven't shown you, that we intend to show you in term 2 as the term unfolds. So I hope this has been a useful introduction into Teams. The last thing that I do want to show you before we finish off is, and I'm not sure if my colleague has posted the link to this yet, but just the site that I refer to, our online training platform. So you'll see over here is our online training platform. The link will be emailed to you as well that you can visit. With professional development, there's a lot of information over here. It's actually listed under courses. So if you go to professional development, you'll find all of these different courses. Some of them have to do with Microsoft, some of them have to do with other platforms as well. But over here, if you click on Microsoft Office 365, let me just make this a little bit bigger again. And this is the part that we're specifically going to focus on expanding next term. So there are a few things on here. My videos just don't load at the moment because my YouTube is not accessible at work at the moment. But there's a few videos, webinars, the things that we have had in the past, but specifically over here when it says using your VSG Schools login credentials. We've created two very short videos, one for the CMIS officer where they can access where on CMIS they go to access your credentials, and another very, very short video just how to log in, which was what we covered in the beginning of this live event. Then there are two PDF documents. How do you actually set up your account and how to access your account if you're still struggling, if the videos if you're still traditional in the way that you want to approach it and you want a PDF, if you want to print it out. Obviously, we, as far as possible, try and encourage less hard copies, not more hard copies, but there you've got two PDFs. And then importantly, if you did not receive your VSG Schools email address, here are the instructions of what you can do to make sure that you actually get the credentials and get your account set up. So please use that information to make sure that you have first ask the CMIS officer. If you're there, if you're not on that list, then follow these steps in order to make sure that you are registered on the list. But again, this not only works, it works in isolation as well, but the minute you get to a point where it's a school-wide approach, a school-wide adoption of using this as your communication tool, it becomes so much more effective. And again, using the one does not mean we exclude the other. But your different types of accounts, whether you're using Google Classroom or an Edmodo or a Schoology or whatever different kind of platform you might already be using, you don't need to be worried that we're going to throw that out and we want you to do only this. But we want to promote the use of this as an effective tool for communication. What you can also find here, last thing I want to say, if you go on webinars, I'm not going to click on this because nothing is going to load at the moment because my YouTube is not going to display at the moment. But if you click on recorded webinars, there's a whole list of things that we have done already, of webinars we've done in the past, including Microsoft training that we've done in the past, that you can have a look at and slowly start improving your own ICT integration into what we're doing at the school. Right, so with that, I'm going to say thank you.